Hello and welcome back. It is Thursday night, NECC Overwatch. You're already 2 games down, but a third one is on the way. I'm ManofClass join tonight, but ToTryHardRay. And Ray, we got another game. It's the last game of the night. Sac State Gold, GFU Esports. What are we expecting here?
I mean, I'm expecting just a full-out just brawl between these two teams, two very talented teams going at it. And while we talk about these teams, let's go ahead and pull up some of those rosters. We'll start with the Sac State Gold team. I mean, very talented roster, as you can see on the screen. I'm really excited to see. I mean, we've even seen in Overwatch League today just how open this meta is. I feel like you can find a composition that you and your team feel really good about it. And if you can play it to the highest levels, you can make it succeed in this meta.
Yeah, you don't have to tell me about open metas when I've been watching European contenders all year. That goes absolutely off the chains, but these teams in Collegiate definitely know something about that. So let's take a look at their opponents on GFU Esports side, because that is, again, another talented roster coming at you. Both these teams also have an extra sub that's currently not listed, of course, because looking at the starting lineups, but potentially they'll bring in a 6. They sub them out. We see Collegiate teams liking to do that due to either hero specialism or just due to the more open nature of wanting everyone to, get their chance to play specialisms. And the way they practice is also very different from that sense than we sometimes see from pro teams or even semi-pro teams. And seeing that energy come through is always lovely. That's why we love NECC. That's why we love Collegiate. And Ray, we have also, since the last season of NECC, had some changes to what we have available in our maps. Naming, we've got Flashpoint to play with. Flashpoint is definitely going to be featured tonight in our first of 3 series. It's going to be the 3rd one, but we could see every single map type out there. And if we get a draw on hybrid, maybe even a 6th.
I'm very excited. Flashpoint is such an exciting, fast-paced type mode. I love its control aspects, but like the fact that you can just think about in between rounds after a point's been capped, like, hey, let's go attack this team in transition when they're not thinking we're going to, catch them off guard, and then you just stagger them for so long and get so much free point percentage. It just pays to be hyper aggressive and very smart with your situational awareness when it comes to those maps. So be very excited to see whether we go to that Saravasa or the new Junk City. But as you can see on the screen, we will be starting with Control, and we are starting with Lijiang Tower.
Yep, Lijiang Tower, the first map. It's a classic in our map pool, and even though we're getting a new control map soon, it's been a tease. It's been announced. We still have the current pool to play with. There is of course still the system that we're running here on NECC, where when a map gets selected, the team that doesn't get to select the map gets to ban a map of that map type. So currently one of the other control maps is out of the rotation. We likely won't be getting back to control or any of those other map types, but the ban situation is still interesting. You can eliminate some of those choices that might not be conducive to what you think your meta style is. With Sac State Gold and GFU Esports coming at you right now, going to be starting on Lijiang Gardens. A lot of environmental hazards, and can you get across that bridge is always the question.
Yeah, that's going to be the #1 priority for these teams. And that's the good thing about Flashpoint coming in this meta is now you don't go to control twice. So you don't have that advantage if you're a team who thrives on control. There's a lot of teams who thrive on those map types. So just getting to map 5 gives them an advantage. But as we take a look at the compositions for these teams, GFU continuing to play like that very Orisa style that we saw in the previous patch with the Sim and the Bastion. So it just predicates on a lot of damage from that Bastion, while Sac State Gold's going more with the Brawl with the Ramatra, but they're going to have a pharmacy, and there's no hit scans for GFU, so you're going to be careful.
Be very careful. And the Bastion can, of course, do a lot of damage through it together with Baptiste, but it's going to be a tricky one. Not really the role they're maybe used to. However, with Canner going super low, Sac State has to take a little bit of a backseat. They're okay with that, though. They like the poke, but they don't like to poke without their tank. The trade is coming back on the Genji. However, it looks like GFU Esports is going to take an early lead in this particular control point. Not a huge loss for Sac State just yet. And look at that. Flaming Sushi still pumping out the damage to get that ult up.
And that's the old adage when you're going against a pharmacy composition is, can you as a brawl team focus down the remaining members of Sac State Gold who aren't the pharmacy before that pharmacy gets value? And in that case, they could, and they're going to have to continue to do that to hold this point.
Yep. Looking at Flaming Sushi, looking for the angle. They're close to that barrage already. It's insane how quickly you can build it up sometimes. There is a window for the Warrior on the other side. Nice wall to stop the Orisa from completely retreating, but there was a gap she could get through. Flaming Sushi setting up for the barrage. Trying to feel this out, but does get back into it. However, Chaos in the meantime is showing exactly that. More and more Chaos as the barrage came out, and Sac State gonna have to go back to spawn and try again.
Yeah, unfortunately, that wasn't the best positioning for that barrage. The Immort field was out, plus that, plus the amplification matrix was out. So then Bash, I mean, you do get the Baptiste, but it doesn't matter because the rest of your team is dead. As Sac State Gold making some changes, they got Oh No going over to the Cassidy now, trying to help put a lot of pressure and damage onto this Bastion that is just raining chaos.
Looks like a good approach here for Sac State. Does get Javelin away, does Canner, but the healing is there. So is the Nemesis form. Gotta still be careful. The Nano Boost is available. We don't want to have to use it just to get in, and they don't use it, so Canner goes down. There's the barrage. Huge from the, well, from the top, honestly. No one really being able to get away from that one. And it's just Chaos being sown constantly by this Bastion, by this pressure that's being pushed out from the Orisa. Eventually, they did get the Orisa out of the way, but just one tank versus your entire team. I know which trade I take.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more, as it is just them trying to focus up this Doomfist, and seems like that is going to be it. A few touches coming in, but that is all she wrote. That is going to be GFU taking that first map. And I think looking at what Sac State was running for a lot of that map, the Ana Mercy with the Ramatra. So your Mercy is mostly focused on your Pharah, trying to pocket her, give her those heals. And in my opinion, Ana just does not pump enough heals into that Ramatra to be able to sustain him, especially against all that spam damage he takes from that Orisa, from that Bastion. So that's one big issue. I feel like a Baptiste would have been better suited.
Yeah, there's always questions, right? Like, we look at these collegiate teams, we look at any team, really, and sometimes you're thinking, okay, so are you just playing this because it's the role you're the most comfortable on? Are you not seeing, like, the gaps or the issues with what you're running at the moment, potentially? And, you know, we can never really know what's going on in the comms or in their prep. Sometimes the interviews shine some light on what's going on. But currently, this looks just like Sac State Gold not really wanting to adapt, at least in that map. This time around, though, it's a double Symmetra. Reinhardt Mirror is going into it with both on the Bastion. It's a full mirror match, and this time Sac State was prepared. They get the Bastion damage out. They're the ones. It looks like GFU might not have been expecting it with the pharmacy in the last map.
I mean, that is the name of the game when you're in a full mirror like this, is setting up your Bastion, your Symmetra, to be in very good positions behind a Rhine Shield, where Bastion can unleash that tank form, and then Symmetra is able to farm up that beam, and you just win the fight so quickly. It just felt like we blinked and half of GFU's team was gone, so that was very well played by Sac State, as now this makes it a lot tougher. This Symmetra is so much harder to re-engage into these points.
It is definitely possible. We've seen some brilliant teleport play even today with London Spitfire. Let's see if GFU has a similar gusto. They at least throw the turrets in. They might follow suit themselves. That doesn't look like the deployables are gone, as there is the defensive charge coming out from Canner. Does get Control V out of it, and that is going to be Dusty Corn off the map. So let's see who gets the better of this engage, as it is indeed Sac State that got the good engage, or the good counter engage, and banishes GFU Esports from the point.
Yeah, unfortunately, I believe it was their Baptiste they lost pretty early in that fight in exchange for the enemy Lucio, but you lose your main healer like that, you're just not going to be able to push in like that, and Sac State is just able to continue to sustain on this point. GFU, again, they are struggling with the ultimates. They don't have a lot to push in here, as Sac State has this amplification matrix to work with.
A lot of ultimates about to be coming online, but they're not just quite there. Sac State could just engage and win it outright here. 63% and counting. Canner looking to just sustain until later in this fight where they can do something. They try to go for the counter shatter. The teleport shatter did try to be, well, attempted to get in, didn't get much. Sound barrier to defensively re-engage now, but it's a huge boop coming out from base. That's how you drop him. Canner gets a double with the fire strike through the amplification matrix. It's not over just yet, this fight, but it's getting trickier and trickier to hold on here for Sac State. The mega health pack is going to be a big boon in the back of Canner. Can they come back into this? Can they try and re-engage? It doesn't look like it. They're going to regroup first, but they might have a quicker regroup with the teleport coming in from the top rope with the shield. Huge re-engage. The sound barrier defensively to try not take too much damage from the Bastion that came in. Uno just boosting around, but it's Chaos once again coming in with the barrage from above. The mortar strike is huge, and it is GFU Esports that's going to hold on to this point as Sac State's going to have to regroup.
Very impressive coming out from GFU. Sac State had a really impressive, they were patient, they re-engaged, but GFU was able to sustain long enough to get their players back who had the later staggers, and then they were able to find those kills with that Bastion ultimate, forcing out that immortality field early. Sac State Gold, however, gets to come into this next fight. They're going to have a shatter, they have the amplification matrix, they have the mortar strike. There's a lot for them to work with here.
Oh, there we go. Straight up from the top. They tried to do the teleport, but it's only Uno that goes through. They get blown up. This is not the way to approach this point, Sac State. How are you going to do this? We saw them last point. They had so many engages that failed, and now they have to find just one good one. It's not coming together just yet.
Yeah, teleporting up to the top of that window just does not work when you're trying to re-engage. It's fine for first fight when you're trying to set yourself up, but the teams are going to be sitting there ready for you. Mortar Strike comes out, finds Chaos, and this is Sac State's opportunity to really push in. They found 2 kills.
Yeah, they did once again put the teleporter on top, because this time GFU was further out, and they just get the full team wipe. Is anybody left to contest? It doesn't look like it. 80%, there is a chance to come back. 86% is usually the magic number, so GFU will get a chance to re-engage here, and they do have some ultimates to work with. However, Sac State's in a position, they're hungry, they're feeling it, they're tasting that victory on this particular point. They want to go to third.
As Dustier Corn Sound Barrier is going to have to be on the ready. But they found 2 picks already. It's all but over. We are heading to a third map. Sac State Gold. Canner found the shatter when the team needed it the most. And now we are tied 1-1 heading into Control Center.
They tried to get away with it. They tried to set up the window with the Bastion through the teleporter, but unfortunately, the shatter was ready, and Sac State just smacks it into third. Let's go and see what happens on the next point, as of course, Control Center is where these teams are going to be ultimately fighting for. That is where the brawl comes together, and where you at least cannot just be booped off the map by a random Lucio or even a Reinhardt charge. Now they're going to have to play purely on the damage.
As we move into Control Center, and this is where we start to see picks like the Junkrat that we see from Sac State Gold, because it's such in close quarters between all these players that Junkrat spam and mines just can do so much damage to a team, but Flaming Sushi gets extremely low and is forced to completely back up.
Yeah, it's a very aggressive posture from GFU. They do get there first. Not surprising, of course, with the Symmetra, but they do have to be careful because Flaming Sushi's back on one of those spam picks. Doesn't matter, though, when Chaos just boosts down. A little bit more coming out, so almost losing their life there does Control V. A little bit too aggressive with that charge, but does get helped back by the Immortality Field, and it's on Uno that goes down first, unfortunately. It does seem that in the end, it's going to be GFU Esports taking control first. Zach, you have to come back.
Yeah, but because they lost players in Sac State, you're going to have to be forced to back up here and allow Sac State to take this space. And look, they're already here on the point.
And now a teleporter comes out. Where does it go this time? It goes all over the place, but not anywhere where cats can stay alive. This is going to be Sac State coming back into it. They flip the point after only 17%, and they're in the position to take this map, or at least this fight, away. Everyone just keeps falling over the side of GFU. They're tripping, and they're stumbling, and Sac State is happy to catch them off guard.
And that was because GFU, I mean, to me, they were pushed a little bit too far forward and weren't able to take full advantage of them winning the fight. But because they lost players in the fight, they just got rolled over by the time the people came back for Sac State. Sac State has a lot of ultimates to work with too. This is looking very bad for GFU.
As once again, the engagement with the amplification matrix, we've seen it so often. They're going to try and get this Junkrat out of sight, out of sorts, but there's Lucio coming to the rescue. The sound barrier is out from both sides. The second run from Sac State, so it'll run out a little bit later, but there's all the damage through the amplification matrix this time around, together with the Rip Tire. That is a whole bunch of damage, and GFU Esports does not have the tools to deal with that after that sound barrier ran out. So many ultimates almost online, GFU, but you're going to have to come back next fight to use them.
Yeah, big issue. Control V kind of isolated themselves trying to find that kill onto Flaming Sushi, and because he got low taking all that spam damage, you were forced to use your sound barrier extremely early and not to counter any of those ultimates that came out for Sac State. So now they're going to continue to hold here. They're going to have to be very careful of this shatter, but they have the photon barrier to try and use this extra shielding.
Once again, the shatter after the teleport. That immortality field didn't stay alive for any amount of time that was useful. Another Lucio goes off the map, and it's just Flaming Sushi, the only casualty on the side of Sac State. The lonely Reinhardt will not fight the Bastion this day. And with 92% and counting, GFU, do you have any answers to come back into this? There are 2 ultimates, but can you use them?
Yeah, it's just going to be no touches. Yeah, as Sac State, after fumbling the first map, comes back strong with a little mirror match of the Bastion Rhine composition. But coming into Control Center, I think pulling out that Junkrat was very smart, and we saw the amount of spam damage that they were able to apply onto the Reinhardt. And the thing about Junkrat is he has all that damage up front. If you're playing something like a Symmetra that we saw GFU playing, you have incredible amounts of shield break and damage, but you have to build up to that. And Junkrat can just take enemies out so quickly.
Yeah, you sure can. And, you know, honestly, there wasn't a lot of the Junkrat in the actual kill feed in the end. But that doesn't matter because so much of that spam damage is setting up. It's breaking down the defenses so that anyone else can just take them down afterwards. Whether it's the Baptiste, the Bastion, even the Lucio at times, or, of course, the good old Reinhardt swinging the hammer. Now, Chaos was showing up on the Bastion very loudly on that first point. But as soon as Sac State had the idea, you know what? Why don't we just, if they want to play this game, like they want to play this Reinhardt Bastion Symmetra game, why don't we just like play into that with the same of our own? Just show them that we're better at that mirror. And that might definitely work on Control. We're going to see if that works with other map types as well. Of course, because we got the other 4 potentially still in the bank, we get to see a lot of diversity of approaches for different maps and modes. And I'm definitely looking forward to seeing if these teams are going to be flexing their muscles a little bit with that.
Yeah, what's the old adage? Anything you can do, I can do better. And
right?
The Sac State definitely proved that they were the slightly better team when it came to that mirror match. We do know the second map type, it is going to be hybrid. And we kind of talked about, are we going to be able to continue to see these Reinhardt compositions thrive? I mean, we know London Spitfire does it, but they are just superb. Their teleport placement to get on top of teams and get all over them is amazing. Are we going to be able to see similar styles be able to continue throughout any kind of map type? That I'm not so sure of, especially if you were to go into more of a high ground heavy map, like if you're going to like a Hollywood. I just don't see that Reinhardt working out so well.
It's always a question, right? So yeah, it usually in NECC we have the old adage where if you don't go King's Row, is it really NECC? And I mean, it can be. In this case, we will get King's Row. It has been confirmed. So they do indeed ban out Numbani, which we wouldn't get hybrid again anyways, but we won't get to see Numbani today, which is sad for me because I do think it's a very good map. But from the way these teams have been playing, it is understandable that, you know, they're not really the biggest fans of Numbani. Though I will say both Fire Mercy as well as some Symmetra teleport shenanigans really fun to do on Numbani, but it's going to be the good old King's Row, the fan favorite as we like to call it.
Yeah, I agree. I feel like Noombani is like the quintessential you must play dive on this hybrid map. But King's Row is like the opposite. Like you must play some sort of brawl or rush with these long corridors that you're going to be working with. I mean, I have seen some dive to an extent work out well, but especially, you know, in the collegiate scene and what we saw from that last map, I probably expect them to run it back once again. Reinhardt, Bastion comps going up against each other. The question is, are they going to see the value in the Symmetra in these defenses and these attacks? I mean, the teleporter gives you so much advantage, especially just going up to the high ground as a brawl and being able to rotate. But do we start to see, you know, maybe we continue to see the Junkrat, but I think, you know, it adds the ability of possibly adding a Sojourn in the mix here, or a Mei.
It could. Like, I was definitely leaning towards the Mei. That's also a little bit of personal bias, but like if you're not going for the Symmetra and you also, so it's like the opposite, right? So Symmetra really creates this position where you can control where you fight from or like which angle you take from the enemy, whereas Mei is more of a control is like when can the enemy hit and see you, which is more of like that wall splitting off enemies, covering for like ultimates, and just like space controlling a little bit more. And Symmetra is more of a space taker in that sense, but also just like, you know, it's more of a battleground picker almost, because you can say like, well, we don't want to fight you here, so we just teleport there, so you have to fight us there. Or you thought you were defending King's Row, well, we teleport behind you, so now we're defending from the archway. You can use that to back off of, which we've actually seen a couple of examples of as of late. So there are definitely some ways to make both heroes very valuable, but they could indeed also go for something like a Sojourn, which we usually consider something more of like a skill pick, because, you know, you have to hit those right clicks more often than not. And that's more of like a mechanical skill pick, whereas Symmetra and Mei are more cerebral skill picks. So it's like, you know, strategizing or in the moment making that decision. And Sojourn then, you know, Sojourn, Ashe, Widowmaker, you know, you get those kind of heroes out. Maybe we see a Cassidy come out through as well. But with the power play that we've seen from Bastion, that seems to be a very normal pick to come through at least.
Couldn't agree more. I do think with the corridor structure that this map has a lot of the time, I think Mei versus Sim could, you know, be the crux that we see. Mei is a great isolationist. Like, your goal is to isolate that Rhine away from their team with the wall. And if you can do that and get the Rhine out quickly, then the Bastion has nothing to shoot behind anymore. Then you're able to focus him down that much faster. So that would be my only qualm coming into this map. But yeah, I think that's what we're going to be looking at here. Mostly what we saw on Lijiang Tower.
Yeah, there's a good call, of course, for potentially going with Orissa's. We saw the Hanzo being flashed as well in GFU Esports' pre-game flashing of heroes. So there are some arguments again for like different picks coming through depending on what your preferred style is. Tank wise, we are fairly set on saying like, yeah, it's probably going to be Reinhardt, maybe Orisa. In a wild world, you might see some Zarya. But it is definitely one of those things where both teams kind of understand what they're going for. Yeah, I mean, from GFU, you can see it straight away. It's going to be that Orisa. They are going to pull out Cats and the Genji this time around. Now, we took a little bit of a look-see at the player profiles earlier, and Cats is definitely not a shy person when it comes to their Genji hours. It is almost all of their hours in competitive at the moment. So they are 100% going to be happy on that hero at the moment. We're going to see if they can actually get the value out of it. I would like to see some of these heroes that I see on Sac State, but I don't think it's going to happen for all of them.
Yeah, this is where we start to see just how skilled Cats is at this Genji, and Genji players in general, especially since they're not running the Ana. You got to be able to get full value out of those blades, as we're going to see Flaming Sushi look for some picks, but I did make the right call. I did expect to see this Mei, and no is on the Mei, so if you are Control V, you got to be very careful about getting walled off.
Looking for damage is Chaos right here. It's going to be GFU on the defense, of course. Sac State on the attack, and now it's going to be the switch over to the Soldier. You know, that I wasn't really expecting the Soldier, but I like seeing the Soldier nonetheless. Still does a lot of damage and a little bit more mobility than the Bastion. Coming through here to try and do their damage, and they are able to regroup with their team a little bit easier as well, although I think they're still on the off angle trying to do damage from there. No, they did actually manage to regroup. Nice. Well done from them. Now you got this fight up in this corridor here, and I'm not quite sure about any of this for either team, honestly.
Yeah, as the Orisa's getting very aggressive and the Amplification Matrix is popped. They got to get out of there and get out of there fast. And they've lost their Genji. This is very bad for GFU.
Oh, there we go. Flaming Sushi on the off angle. Soldier quick to relocate. This is why you like to pick him over the Bastion. Gets to find some off angles, and the chaos has truly been sown. No more Genji to work with. No more Orisa to work with. We do have a couple of ultimates coming online for both teams, but with only the Amplification Matrix out and not really having an angle to shoot through it ever anybody. Going to be a tricky one for GFU to hold on to. They are coming back into this. Chaos did just find the Soldier. And they might be able to go after the mate. No ice block in the way. No dash opportunity for you, Cats. They're still going to be looking for it. Dash through. Goes to 30 HP. Has to run away. There's the sound barrier to just try and secure it. But Birdon still falls with the Blizzard. That should be it. It's almost taken over this point. No one's on it currently. But they need to find the angle. They're just sneaking away. And they do. No one touches on the side of GFU. We're not going to call it what we want to call it. But that is definitely a situation in which we might have been persuaded to.
No doubt. And the best part is you're able to bank 2 ultimates if you're Sac State while drawing out a decent amount of ultimates from GFU. They're going to come back. They're going to have a sound barrier to sustain, and they're getting close to that blade. But as we mentioned, no Ana on the field, so Cats has to find value with just a blade by itself. The good thing is there's no sound barrier from Sac State Gold to stop you and limit the amount of action you get with your blade.
This is going to be a really tight corridor to get shattered in. Of course, a lot of tools for Orisa to not get shattered, but the rest of the team, not so lucky. Gonna have to be an immortality field to save their lives. Gonna be a good shatter, not hitting the Orisa as predicted, but will be a lot of other things coming out. Sound barrier to counter the tactical visor that comes out from Flaming Sushi. And now it's the Dragon Blade time. Slices through one, gets maybe a little bit more. The immortality field is good, but is it good enough? The answer is most likely no. Actually, they do find Cats, and the healing is there. Canner, though, goes too low. There is the Amplification Matrix. They do find it. The kills are still going back and forth. This is such a chaotic back and forth between these two teams, and there's not enough members to be able to posture this aggressively. Control V, you might be able to go back here. I think I'm just going to call them paste at this stage because they're copy-pasting the same tactic over and over again. There's going to be aggression over aggression over aggression, but the spawns are closer for the attack, and Flaming Sushi and crew, they're coming back into this. The Blizzard won't get anybody, but it definitely is buying a lot of space as Canner goes a little too aggro. They just came back and they're already out again. GFU Esports, the aggression might have been exactly what they needed. No space given for free, and no space is going to be taken at all by Sac State.
I'm not sure what Canner was doing there. I feel like we were, getting this beautiful POV from the Junkrat, and then we turned the corner and like, wait, whoa, where'd the Reinhardt come from? What's he doing all the way up there? And then he was dead. So you got to be very careful that if you're Canner, I mean, this GFU composition is wanting to isolate you and pick you off very early in this fight. Dustier Corn has this sound barrier to use, which can counter a lot of these ultimates GFU's coming in with.
GFU currently looking for an opening to just stop anything from coming through, and they're just taking more and more space. They're going forward. Nice sound barrier to try and counter the Terror Surge. Does a decent job of it. They do find base on the other end. Control V cannot get out away from the wall, and it's just Junkrat pounding grenades into the enemy team. They're going through the alley. You don't want to run into a big man with a hammer when you're in a dark alley on King's Row. Chaos does find Flaming Sushi at the answer. Got a little too far forward, and once again Sac State does go forward, but they give a little bit away.
Yeah, and now the Bastion with the Amplification Matrix, so much damage on the field for GFU, but because they lost their Junkrat, they were smart and they just completely backed out of this fight. Now the time to wreak some terror.
Yeah, there's no transform as well. Nothing to shoot that tire really quickly out unless you let it roll for too long. There's a lot of damage on the Orisa, and the gold is almost gone. No more Fortify. Control V is going to be very careful here, and they don't really have a lot of healing to work with. They don't get enough. They will go down the Shatter onto Chaos just before he can burst down enough damage onto Canner. They will find the elimination, and this card is going to get checkpoint B.
Yeah, breathing a little sigh of relief there if you're Sac State, but you gotta get... I mean, I love the aggression. You're supposed to play aggressive with these Reinhardt compositions, but there's always that adage of, like, everything goes with bacon, but sometimes there's just too much, and that was too much aggression. Their players were getting isolated, and that was big. As Canner's now going over to the Ramatra to try and brawl out with this Orisa, but Cats has the blade in their pocket to use.
Looking for some aggression. Well, Ramatra is definitely a tool to do that. You gotta be a little bit more careful than you do with Reinhardt, but once you get punching, you punch hard. Another Immortality fields a counter with the Dragon Blade. Will not maybe find even anything this time around. Last time it was 1, this time it is 0. They do get Canner in the aftermath. They might be able to get the May over here. Uno with the Ice Freezer. You're not gonna be happy when you're walking into that one. Doesn't get ice this time around, this Cats, and it's gonna be Uno going back in the block. That did find base. So now can actually put on the aggression. Can you use the speed boost to instantly get into this fight stack state? Yes, you can, but you got to be careful that you send the right player in first. And either Blizzard comes through, that will be Cats frozen. Genji should be able to be taken out, but the Terra Surge as the counter finds Uno as they were too greedy going after that Genji. Another Riptire comes through. Will they get anything on the higher ground? Nothing more than Immortality. They don't even get to explode it. And it is just GFU Esports having a reaction on every single tool that Saxstates throws at them.
They're playing extremely well, very quick reflexes, and you're going to have a sound barrier for this incoming amplification matrix. The only advantage Saxstates had is they can match this. This should be their opportunity to get in and make something happen because they need some more cart progress. This is not going to be enough to win them King's Row.
King's Row, we know it so well, and so do both of these teams, but the tank roulette is not proving to be successful so far inside of Sac State. D.Va, though, is an interesting choice, can mitigate a lot of this damage while they're pumping out a lot of their own. Flaming Sushi on the Bastion will just almost burn through this Orisa, and eventually they do, because the Javelin Spin doesn't block every type of damage. It's surely not the Mei. So, with rounding this last corner and going into overtime in a couple of seconds, this is Sac State's goal. They have to get to the end, and they have a sound barrier to work with.
Yeah, it has to be ready to counter this blade that Cats is going to be coming in with. But they don't really have a lot of tools offensively, so Sac State's relying on team play and pop-off plays by some other heroes.
A little bit more damage coming through. There is a sound barrier to try and sustain through this fight. The Dragon Blade not going to find anything as a result. There's just too much health in the way. Now the Terra Surge will be omitted by everybody on Sac State, but they did push them all into their own enemy team. The Bastion Ultimate will get at least the Lucio. Will it find a little bit more? Definitely did a lot of damage onto Control V, and they will get eliminated. 2 down. 3 to go, and with that self-destruct that might be a little bit easier to do, will they get traded? Uno and Flaming Sushi out of it. No more DPS on the field, but that doesn't really matter when you have a D.Va, a pro gamer, just flying through the map. A little bit more damage. The Amplification Matrix is really gonna help out, but they need to keep finding these eliminations or the respawns will come back. The Defense Matrix can actually mitigate a lot of that Bastion Ultimate. Is exactly what they're going to be doing on Canner's side, but they need a little bit more health, they need a little bit more healing, and they don't have another remech coming through. The Self-Destruct already used, and with the overtime ticking down, no one else can make it. Nope, they cannot make it. Sac State, this is where their attack will end, but it is very close to the end.
That's huge for GFU. By all means, Sac State should have brought that home, but they were just the survivors, the Lucio, the Baptiste. They just survived long enough to get their defensive and tank heroes back on the field to bring it home. And again, I just look at Sac State Gold. Like, how do you not find the focus fire and get those targets down? Being able to complete King's Row would have put you in a very strong position, especially when you're already up 1-0 and you're trying to apply this pressure onto GFU. I don't know. But as you mentioned, you pretty much got it to the end, so you're still in a pretty okay position if you're Sac State Gold. But in my opinion, King's Row is a very finishable map, so you put in that possibility of tying this series up 1-1, and that is not what you want here.
Yeah, it did look like GFU was playing a very strong defensive game. We got to see whether or not they can also put in the aggression, because every single time they sort of tried to do a breakout move against Sac State after like winning a defense, they did get punished quite easily. And both these teams have a habit of losing members in situations where they kind of didn't really have to. So let's see if they manage to clean it up a little bit, because if either of those teams can sort of solve that problem that they've been running into, they're very likely to run away with the series.
Only time will tell as GFU begins to take their attack. They're gonna have Cats go over to
It's a scout. It's a
yeah,
scout. They just want to know what they're running into.
Yeah, it's just, I mean, I thought it was pretty basic. Sac State hasn't been like, they haven't had like any off the ball weird picks. They've only ever swapped things to counter what GFU has been doing. So again, they're gonna have Cats on this Genji. So as this Genji, it's tough sledding. I mean, your goal is to try and mitigate as much of this damage that Flaming Sushi can do, but he's already 40% to an ult.
That's constantly being used, this Genji, for the deflect power. Just a deflect bot is always what you'd call him, but can do a little bit more. Didn't really fight much with the blades, but it's obviously understandable. Not a lot of extra damage coming through, no damage boost, no nano boost, and a lot of defensive utility. Good deflect though this time around. We get it with the Javelin. Flaming Sushi getting completely impaled, and the space has truly been taken. Can Sac State Gold get back into this? They do have a lot of damage coming through that archway, but there's also a lot of damage coming back at them, and it doesn't look like they have a lot of luck going their way, as Uno will also fall. The implication rating does a lot. They do lose Cats, but there's not enough members of Sac State to come back into this point and actually recontest. That's point A gone for GFU.
Yeah, very swift, very quick, very impressive coming out from GFU. I feel like the only, thing you're feeling good about if you're Sac State was you force out the amplification matrix. So if you get a good regroup here, you have this opportunity to really hold strong at these archways, which is a very, very strong defendable position for this defense if they can get there.
Yeah, Chaos already find the first one of Flaming Sushi. Flaming Sushi not having a lot of luck. They were bursting up with ult charge before, but now they haven't even gotten a single point of damage out before the fight even starts. Canner gets taken out as a result of the Terra Surge, and they're just surging forward as to follow up as well. No one getting out alive in GFU Esports. It is that they eliminated Flaming Sushi so early, otherwise that team kill horde would definitely have been sounding.
Couldn't agree more. And the more juicier part, if you're GFU, is you use Terra Surge and you're able to force out that sound barrier, so you don't have to worry about that coming to this next fight. Your biggest worry is this incoming Blizzard, but because that sound barrier is gone, Cats is free with this blade. But then they found Flaming Sushi again.
You're relying on the damage coming through so much, and it's just never there when the fights actually take place. That's going to be an incredibly free Dragon Blade, another team wipe coming through. And with 3 minutes 50, they're already at point B. They're going to get a massive time bank for C, because I don't think anyone can really contest this anymore.
Yeah, you absolutely just cannot allow your Bastion to keep getting picked off early in this fight. I don't know if it's Flaming Sushi taking a bad angle or if Canner's not holding the shield enough, but regardless, you got to find an answer, because 5 minutes on the clock to finish King's Row. GFU is in such a great position right now.
Looking again through an amplification matrix, it's not a fun thing to look at if you are GFU, but so far they have the confidence. They have a lot of time bank to work with as well. There's the counter amplification matrix, and they hide behind the corner. Well, they could definitely shatter into a fortified Orisa as Chaos takes down both Flaming Sushi and Uno again. No ultimates from these DPS, so they're just not coming through. They have them in the bank. They've been able to have had potential opportunities to use them. They're just not coming out. There is the triple shot coming out of Flaming Sushi, will not hit anything, and they have to get out of spawn in the first place. Birdon cannot even do that, and with the Tracer trying to touch it, Flaming Sushi even managed to put a toe on. It's going to be the Winston jumping out with the Blizzard. No one's really touching at the moment from GFU. They do find Control V as a result. Uno on the cart, now block left. It's just going to be the Lucio bouncing around on the Immortality field as there's Dustier Court. They actually find the elimination off the map, and with these teammates trickling in, they may be able to do it if there are a few more eliminations, a few more slip-ups coming through from GFU. Sac State might be able to hold on to this, but it doesn't look like it's going to be enough. That is going to be GFU taking away map number 2, putting it to a 1-1.
I mean, I talk about the missed opportunities that that Sac State had, but I mean, that was just such an impressive attack coming out from GFU, and them being able to constantly find these early picks in the fight without having to commit any ultimates. That's just like the greatest gift you could ask for when playing Overwatch. Like, holy crap, we got to pick. We're going to win this fight and we don't have to use any ultimates, because Overwatch just boils down a lot of the time to ultimate advantage, and being able to continue to snowball these ultimates in your bank, it just gives you that much of a stronger position for the fights that matter.
Yeah, it sure does. And I mean, you can look at it, right? Like in all these replays, it keeps coming back. There's a lot of chaos. There's a lot of positioning. Both teams making good plays, honestly. Like even with this Blizzard, right? Like the Blizzard comes through, Uno goes to the elimination, but then still dies to the Terra Surge. It's like it's one of those things where you make a choice, and that choice goes one way, and if maybe it goes the other way, if you take the other choice, you might be able to push a little further. And always choosing to go for the elimination is not really paying off for either team in most situations, but it's definitely paying off a little less for Sac State at this stage.
I think you bring up a very good point, and now we are in a 1-1 series, baby. No 3-0s for us today, so that means we're definitely guaranteed to go to push. I mean, let's just go to 5. I'd love to see the whole just wide range of maps to where there's no repeats anymore. So I'd be very excited to see that happen.
Indeed. Before we do, they're going to take a little bit of a break, so don't go anywhere. We'll be right back with the next map. And welcome back. It's currently 1-1 between GFU and Sac State. So let's get into map 3, right? Well, wait a little bit as we get into it, because of course we could also know what map the teams are actually picking. There aren't a lot of choices because it is Flashpoint, so there's only 2. So you'd think it'd be fairly easy, but yeah, it looks like we're going to be going to Suravasa.
In my opinion, that's kind of been like the normie pick. Like most teams pick Suravasa. It's kind of like hybrid going to Kings Row. At this point, Flashpoint, we're going to Suravasa. It's been very rare when you see teams going to New Junk City. I think Suravasa is probably the prettier map, but I like the aesthetic of New Junk City. But Suravasa, it's going to be really interesting, because when you get into a map like Flashpoint, you normally thrive on high speed, hyper aggressive compositions. You know, your divas, your doomfists, your Orissas with your Lucios. So I mean, we saw on that last map with GFU specifically, they seem to find their stride a lot with this Orissa composition, and I think they can continue to play that going into Suravasa.
You can kind of continue to play that anywhere there isn't a lot of high ground, right? So it's going to be an interesting thing to see whether they will or even have to adapt at all in this series from that composition. Sac State, though, they've been looking to flex around a little bit more in terms of picks on like every single position so far. Support has been the most consistent for everybody. Let's see if they might find some luck with something new, or whether they're going to continue the trend that they've been going with. Of course, we do know that because it's such a different map type, because it's a new map type, there are some unknowns in terms of what players understand to be the norm on these maps and these particular points. So there is some opportunity for differing opinions, differing metas, differing counter swaps as well. And with 5 points potentially happening in a row that quickly, there isn't always enough time to think about it.
As we all know, as Flashpoint goes, it's going to be a battle for the same point every time. It will be market that these teams will be battling over first. And then once a team has captured and gotten the full 100%, then it is the game of the RNG gods. Will it favor the team who just won the point, where the next point that activates is right next to them? Or does it favor the team who just lost that point, and then they're able to set up more defensively on the point?
I really don't want it to be a bait, because I want Sac State to run out with this just because it looks really cool, and they are going to do exactly that. This is an up-close and personal composition with a lot of burst fire coming through, and if Canner can charge up that beam to full, that Orissa's not going to stand a chance. Control V, you might have met your maker in this one. Someone doesn't like the Omnix, and it's going to come through pretty quickly.
Yeah, I like the Orisa charged up going up against this Orisa. It makes their job so much harder because that twirl does nothing. But this Bash just has so much damage. It can burst through those bubbles. But Uno has found Chaos, and that's going to be a great opening pick for Sac State. But they have to find more before this composition can stabilize. Immortality Field is out, but it's down, and that should be all she wrote for the Orisa, but they continue to stabilize with that Fortify, and now they turn their eyes to the Baptiste, but it doesn't matter because they've now lost their own Baptiste, and when you thought it was all looking good for Sac State, as I mentioned, they just could not get those kills fast enough, and GFU Esports was able to stabilize.
Canner made the mistake of walking past the Orisa, and then there's Lucio, pushes them off the high ground, and all of a sudden you have nothing to do for your team and they just get ambushed. You never want to put yourself past the enemy tank, because in most situations that will mean that your entire team is up for grabs, where they normally might not be, because there's a big Beam and Zarya in the way. Flame and Sushi, though, on this Sojourn, looking very comfortable.
Couldn't agree more, and GFU is going to be able to continue to hold this point with this amp matrix as Sac State is still trying to build up to some of their ults of their own. Flaming Sushi, but they've lost a no, so this is going to spell disaster for Sac State Gold, and with one fight away from this point being capped, that might be all she wrote for GFU getting this point. They're just finding these staggers, and yeah, that is pretty much going to be a point capture for GFU.
A little bit of an unnecessary Dragon Blade coming out from Cats, I will say that, but they might either want to swap already or just felt like it was necessary for some reason. I don't really know. They definitely guarantee that Canner won't have any charge anymore, or that Zarya, so that's at least something. We'll be coming in with the Graviton Surge, of course, though.
Yeah, going into Ruins is a pretty favorable position for GFU. They're going to be able to get here first. They're going to be able to set up their Arista and Bastion in very favorable positions to try and set up for some kills onto Sac State Goal. But that Graviton Surge that Canner's going to have could be the kiss of death for GFU.
Especially with the Amplification Matrix, Sound Barrier, they got Death Blossom too. Like, they'll be in a pretty good spot to do whatever they kind of want to do. There's the Bastion coming through, will just buy a lot of damage, and the charge here for Canner as the Graviton does come through. Immortality Field is trying to counter it together with the Sound Barrier, but the Death Blossom coming through will only take care of that field. A lot of chaos, a lot of trying to fight eliminations once again, and with the deflect coming through, Cats just cannot stop the Zarya beam from damaging him. That is everybody down on the side of GFU, and finally Sac State can get some point percentage going on either of these objectives. And the cool thing is, GFU didn't actually cap control, even though they were in a position to do so.
Couldn't agree more. The problem for Sac State is that cost quite a bit of your ultimates, and now you have Dusty Recorn going over to that Kiriko, as GFU will be able to push in with this amp matrix, and there's not a whole lot that Sac State is going to have to be able to do with this, but doesn't matter when you got Cats down.
It might still matter now they find base as well. The damage dealers are still there, though. They can do a lot through this Amplification Matrix with Chaos on that Bastion. We'll be able to find something, but not enough, as Control V can only push him into a corner before they get taken out by the Soldier. And I saw that Railgun, I saw that Overclock coming through, and I was thinking they don't have a lot, but they might just have all they need on Sac State side. Now, there will be a few more tools in the bank for both of these teams, or at least coming up soon. So it's not a full like reset as we do see sometimes, but there is the first ability exchange with the mortar shots coming through.
Yeah, it's unfortunately not going to find anything, but it does force out that Wraith form from Unknown. So if you're GFU Gold, this might be the ability, knowing that that is down, to be able to push in. Unfortunately, GFU has found 2 picks as Control V is trying to take control of this point, and it is now a point flip for GFU as Sac State Gold is going to have to get forced back as they are down too many picks. However, GFU will get to continue to sustain here with his blade, but they don't need it this fight. Cats is just dominating.
It's very nicely done, though. They kind of keep baiting them so Canner can keep doing more damage. They will have Graviton next fight. They might have given up a little bit too much in order to do that, and they didn't really preserve weapon charge, just get more ult charge. 45% though, plenty of time to get back in here of your Sac State, and you only have to win that one fight to get an equalization on these points, 1-1.
Yeah, but with the percentage building up and up, we're getting just closer and closer to the inevitability that this might just be final fight territory. Canner's got to get in here and get some value with his Graviton Surge, because there is no sound barrier online yet for GFU.
Yeah, I mean, GFU doesn't have it just yet, but we'll have it really soon. As soon as that sound barrier hits the entire team. There is also both support ultimates as well, the DPS ults. This is going to be an ult fiesta if I've ever seen one. But how much are they willing to burn for this 1 point when there's still potentially 3 to go? There's the Dragon Blade coming through. We'll find Duster Unicorn. Flaming Sushi is already out of it. And it does look like they invested a couple of ultimates. Both support ultimates are in for Sac State. There's going to be GFU spending 4 of them to secure themselves the 2-0 lead.
And Sac State just never used that Graviton Surge. They had a window of opportunity with no sound barrier on the field to try and really jump the gun and get these picks. And it just didn't happen after such an impressive first attempt going all the way to 99. They get reverse swept on point 2 as we now head to Palace for what could be the deciding point. GFU wins this point, it's all over, and they're up 2-1 in the series.
Might have expected the sound barrier to be online already when that was why they didn't use the Graviton. Now it's definitely not online, so now they have free reign to do whatever they want. No more ultimates on the side of GFU. Instantly get the Bastion out of the way. Don't have to worry about the damage anymore. Gonna be Warrior going ridiculously low. Control V does find Bird on it. Flaming Sushi goes down too, and it looks like completely not investing to get an objective is just not an option for Sac State. They have to find this. Cats does find Uno, but the Uno gets, well, finds Cats as well. They sort of fan each other with shurikens and find eliminations. We do see the contest come through a little bit. No, it is going to be Sac State getting that point control first.
That was a lot of ultimates invested from Sac State to get that point. Unknown's getting really close to this blade, but Cats is continuing to just match this ultimate charge just straight up with Unknown, which is crazy because Unknown swapped a little while ago and Cats found the pick already.
Cats already found Uno out of the way, and that is again an early death of Sac State. That is just not good. Well played indeed, Cats. Cats looking for a little bit more, goes after Lucio. Duster Unicorn will not get caught that easily, but Canner will, and there's the Impale that comes through. 52% on the clock, still decent, but they need to find obviously all the way to 100s to even keep this map alive, and GFU does not seem to want to let up.
Not only do they not want to let up, but they're coming up on 5 ultimates to be able to use. And if they can just spread these ultimates out and win these team fights quickly, you're going to just blink your eye and GFU is going to win this map. Sac State Gold has to be ready. This sound barrier from Dusty Unicorn is going to be so important to limit the value that GFU gets out of these ultimates and force them to have to use more.
A little bit more coming through. Another Terra Search. Sound barrier from Duster Unicorn to negate that effect as well as from the Bastion ultimate. They tried to combine them, but not going to happen this time around. There's the blade from Uno coming through. Will it find anything? It doesn't look like it, as Cats is also just slicing air at this stage. Will go down eventually to Canner with the incredibly high charge on this Zarya. These bubbles are resetting a little bit quicker nowadays, so you got to be careful. You can almost never find that window. You have to break them, and there's the overclock going through the amplification matrix. No more targets to shoot at for the Baptiste. And that's going to be the team wipe of GFU finally coming through. Sac State, they can still get this, but they need to get this point.
But that's exactly what you needed if you're Sac State. You win the point and you forced GFU to use every single ultimate they had in their bank, and then you still have a Graviton Surge. This is Sac State's point for the taking.
It really is, but can they get that Graviton off this time around? They are not having to worry about a Javelin spin. It is Graviton Surge time, but Canner eventually throws it out while they're in the Immortality Field. Can they find value? Can they find follow-up? The Immortality Field is doing a great job at protecting it, and the healing is there. All the damage that was done has been negated and turned around, and now they're just stuck in this corner. The application rating does come through. It's a lot of damage that can potentially be done. Control V is essentially low, but it's not going to be low enough. Canner finally starting to beam up. The Zarya damage is coming through. No Orisa to worry about. It is just a Genji and a Baptiste, but the Genji, or Genji to Lucio even, but they are enough to vacate the point. GFU Esports is going to take that in a 3-0 fashion.
Very impressive from GFU. They have taken the licks they got from Lijiang Tower in map number 1. They have come back with a vengeance, taking the last 2 maps in a row. Sac State had that last point under their lock. They had a great Graviton Surge that came out, but in came Baptiste from GFU, got the perfect immortality field just in time to save both of the players caught in that graviton surge, and they're able to take that sustain and ultimately win Saravasa in a very convincing 3-0 fashion and put themselves on match point.
Match point has come through. 2-1 for GFU and Sac State. I mean, we've seen they can win a map. They did it before. But can they win 2 more in order to put the series in their hands? I don't know. It's looking pretty good for GFU at this point. And if they cannot find a way to deal with this Orisa composition a little better, Sac State's not going to be able to walk away with this one. 3-1 looks to be in the cards as we go to push. But we all know how push can go. It's very wishy-washy.
Yeah, and there's only 3 maps. I mean, we talk about, with the whole ban phase and the map picks. I mean, we thought it was, bad with Flashpoint because there's only 2, but it's not getting any better with push when you only have 3 maps to choose from. Yeah. I mean, based on what we saw, it's loser picks and then winner gets to ban a map for the next time around.
Yeah,
so
exactly. So that means Colosseo is going to be banned for this push cycle. We'll see what actually gets picked in the end.
Yeah, I think that's kind of been universally the least favorite push map from most of everyone is Colosseo. If I am Sac State, and I'm not sure if I have this new love for the Zarya composition, or maybe I want to go play the Reinhardt or, back to Orisa. But I think either of these 2 maps between Esperanza and New Queen Street is going to be very good, but I'm a big New Queen Street stan, so I think that's the direction you should go. A lot of intermediate high ground to control, and I think especially if you're going to have if you're going to continue to play Sojourn, I really like Sojourn on their home map of Toronto.
Yeah, I mean, we've seen it find the value. They did find the damage with it. If anything, we're looking for what Uno can do to support that Sojourn a little bit better, because the Reaper definitely was not looking like it. The Genji looking a little bit better, but they're still being sort of bested by Katz at that point. So let's see what they can find when we do indeed go to Esperanza.
Only time will tell. I can't really read the chat if they did pick Esperanza. It's a little too small for my eyes. Yeah. So yeah, it looks like we are going to Esperanza. I'm very excited. The only thing with Esperanza is I feel like, okay, so the main thing that people don't like about Colosseo, for example, is they don't like how powerful that defending high ground can be on that bridge. And I feel like New Queen Street kind of has a middle ground where like the high ground for the defense isn't like super oppressive and you can deal with it. On Esperanza, I feel like it's not on the level of Colosseo, but it's definitely not New Queen Street either. Like that high ground has a lot of power to it, but it's not nearly as bad as Colosseo. So I think a lot of those teams, I've seen situations in games I've casted where I've seen one team they got a meterage advantage and they just continued to hold high ground, and it was up for the other team to try and take that away.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, we do talk a little bit about high ground when we go to push, not as much, of course, as on like a lot of these escort maps, even hybrid maps to a degree, but it is still worth noting that it does exist. Even like the tiniest bit of high ground can be a big problem. Like we even see players talk about the difference in being up or down the stairs on Nepal Shrine. Which is like not a huge elevation. It doesn't really feel like a high ground, but it is. Like it is a high ground because it's higher grounds technically, right? But when you look at these push maps, like, yeah, the high grounds can matter, but we've also seen a lot of these Symmetra comps come through where they just teleport around it, and it kind of becomes a non-issue a lot of the time. So it really depends on how these teams execute it and what they like to play. I mean, we've seen different looks come out mostly from GFU, from Sac State at this stage. So GFU is likely going to just run out with the Orisa Bastion again, but Sac State, I mean, we did see them have sort of an answer with the Zarya, but they need a little bit more of an answer.
Yeah, the Bastion was just raining terror. So like you mentioned, I mean, the Zarya, it had its value, getting a hard charge and be able to throw that down onto the Bastion, but you blow through your bubbles so quickly. And then if you're Zarya, what do you do without no bubbles? You're kind of just out hanging there, just a big meat shield for your team. So that's going to be the big issue. I mean, I kind of like the idea when they started to match the Genji, because you have that ability if you're playing the Zarya Not only can they bubble you and allow you to be a lot more aggressive, but you can use your deflect to help just mitigate the damage that your Zarya takes.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, looking at what these teams have been running, again, we are definitely looking for Sac State to try and find an answer. And when they were playing the Reinhardt mirror, they definitely looked like they had some sort of an answer going. Like, that was looking pretty good for them. This Orisa pick that's been coming out from GFU has just put them in a position where they don't really know how to deal with it. And again, Canner sort of tried. They tried to run past this Orisa and then go for the backline. But as soon as you do that, then again, your entire team opens up as a possibility for to be a target. And as long as they are able to kite the Zarya, which they were able to do pretty well, you're not going to find value on either front. So they have to find a different way, which is not eliminating the Orisa, but is keeping the Orisa at bay while they're dealing with the rest of the team first. Otherwise, it is very hard to get the bovine out of the way.
Could not agree more, as we will be getting you guys into Esperanza very shortly. As we talked about, GFU is on match point. They win Esperanza. They get to take that victory 3-1 over Sac State. Sac State hoping to fire back. I mean, we saw they had a lot of good success on Lijiang Tower when they ran that the Reinhardt with that Orisa, with that, Reinhardt, not with the Orisa, with the Symmetra and the Bastion. And we haven't really seen them go back to that, but then again, that tends to be a very control-heavy composition. As we kind of talked about, it gets harder and harder to run that the further you develop into these series and you get to more of these maps where, you know, high ground and being able to poke matter a little bit more.
Yeah, well, it's time to go to Portugal. Time to whip out the decorative roosters, as we like to call them in the States. We have different words for them as well, but let's not say that on stream. That being said, though, with this map, like it's as soon as it came out, a lot of teams started to gravitate towards it just because of the issues they saw with Colosseo and like New Queen Street being New Queen Street in a way where it's like it's a little too neutral. There's always the desire to create a sort of advantageous position for yourself, and it does feel like Esperanza offers that a lot, like you sort of touched upon as well. Like, there are various high grounds that can be taken, but they can be taken by both teams, as well as a couple of these choke points. So it has like a little bit of everything in it without being too oppressive in any one of these areas. And it's the first time we see it come out. It's the Doomfist from Canner. Seeing it come out, in terms of more of a consistency, not in terms of like a stall pick at least.
Yeah, I'm very curious to see how this is going to work out, especially when you have flaming sushi on this Ashe. It feels a little weird. Normally when you play Doomfist composition, you get a lot more aggressive, and that's the pain. Flaming Sushi's just kind of there all by himself with not a lot to defend, and he goes down because of that, and you're going to be forced to like back up here if you are Sac State, and you're just going to get a lot of free push on this cart if you're GFU.
GFU should be getting a lot of free push, but currently they're just leaving the bot where it is. We've seen this happen more often with them, sort of not really paying that much attention to the objective, and there it finally goes, GFU getting some meterage on, but it could have been a little further.
Yeah, they do get Flaming Sushi once again sent back to the Shadow Realm into spawn, as they are just not having a great time, as Cats is just finding so much value on this Genji. I mean, all those hours they've been putting in the sweating rooms are working really well.
Yeah, you always gotta wonder where the Flaming Sushi is just a tag they put into their aimbot today, where it's just like every single time you see that name pop up, you gotta instantly go after it. Of course, none of these players are cheating. I'm just messing around a little bit. There's a good sleep right onto Cats, though. That should be the elimination, and it sure is. Nice coordination between the supports there, as they do find Flaming Sushi once again. It's just a level playing ground now, as Canner gets impaled by a javelin and eliminated to boot. They do find Chaos on the other side, so it is a fairly even fight still, but you are running into a tank disadvantage, and that can be all you need to lose a fight. Warrior just able to barrel forward following suit, and this is going to be another fight win coming out. They do find Warrior late, though. We're not in a good place to deal with to get back out, and that Mega Health Pack wasn't there anymore, so Baptiste advantage, but first checkpoint taken.
Yeah, that's actually huge. I thought Canner might go in there and try and contest and try and stop them from taking it, because it's so much value getting that first checkpoint on push maps. Because from here on out, if you're Sac State, to get any kind of cart progress, you're going to have to win 2 fights, because you're always going to have to take a fight in the mid area because of the spawns that GFU now gets.
Another very aggressive posturing coming out from Sac State straight away. Will instantly get punished. That is 3 down already. They're going to find, well, more. They did find Control V on the other side, but that's not going to be much. Chaos as well. Birdon just chiming in with the eliminations, I guess. Well, why not? Anna is a sniper after all. But it is definitely looking grim here for Sac State. They're not like hard losing most of these fights, but they're losing too much too fast. If they can stop that, once again, that is how you start winning these games.
Now, 4 ultimates coming to this next fight for Sac State, so this is the opportunity they've been waiting for. However, Tobas has this Soundbeard. They can counter a lot of these ultimates coming in.
They've used it that early, though. A good anti-nade as well to follow it up. Birdon starting to shine a little bit on this Ana. Will get taken out, as I say, because, of course, the curse is real, but will be able to find 2, 3, 4. Once again, Sac State just falling apart like a house of cards with a little bit of wind against it. Not too much to do. And again, they had 4 ultimates, only able to use 1 out of them. That's not the old conversion that we want to see, Sac State.
As a big anti-nade is going to force GFU to at least back up just a little bit and not play so hyper-aggressive. But Sac State, Uno has this blade once again, and the sound barrier has already been used.
Sound barrier through as Uno does try and slice and dice, but it's just going to be him left alone. Canner is coming back from spawn, but it's a lone Doomfist, and we all know what happens in our games when a Doomfist goes in alone. They're not coming out alive unless they have a meteor strike. This time around, Canner has only 20% left to that one. Flaming Sushi is ready with the bob. It has to be sent in at some point, but it does look like GFU is okay with letting this bot walk back a little bit. They have 5.5 minutes. They have all the time in the world.
Yeah, all the time in the world. The one thing for Sac State is, man, they've just been having to use a lot of ultimates. They do have Dustier Core now going over to the Alari. Hopefully that adds to the pick potential, but Canner's already down after using the Meteor Strike.
Yeah, Meteor Strike after you land, you are not as mobile as you want to be. Bastion instantly capitalizes, but it's Flaming Sushi finally showing their true power, I would say. Honestly, it was a long time coming. They get eliminated a lot, but they do find some value back as Birdon has to run with a tail between their legs. Can't really get much done as a lone Ana versus a Orisa. Kind of take a little bit of damage, and there's finally the pick. The pick from Canner. Going up against Control V, it's the Orisa off. We've kind of been waiting for it the entire time. It was bound to happen at some stage. Maybe it's a little late, but better late than never, and it might still give him a chance to win this.
Yeah, and in all this time, it's still yet to reach back to the middle point. So these forward spawns have forward have been unlocking. Control V finds the Ana, and that is just going to snowball to such a quick team fight win. GFU is just absolutely dominating this map pick of Esperanza that Sac State made.
Yeah, of course, on push, the map pick is I'm not saying it doesn't matter, but it's a little harder to get value out of, so to speak, for each team. We'll see now whether or not they can do something. Control V took a lot of damage, does get healed back up with the amplification matrix. There is the blade, but does get taken out before they can get anything done. Another thing, an ultimate eaten from Dustier Corn, and all the last hopes they had left on Sac State are falling apart. Birdon, Canner, the last 2 survivors. The respawns are very close, but the damage is so much that it doesn't even matter. This bot's going to reach the end. There's 3.5 minutes on the clock, and they're already going to be done. Sac State not looking good at all on this map, but GFU Esports is capitalizing with a vengeance. They take the 3-1 win tonight, and unfortunately, Sac State Gold going to have to go back, maybe VOD review this a little bit, and see if they can improve for the next one.
Shout out to GFU. I was curious how this series was going to progress after them dropping that first map, but they just put it behind them, and they have just not looked back. After Lijiang Tower, they have pretty much dominated. I mean, thinking about King's Row, they came into that third point with what, like over 5 minutes, and then just delivered it so quickly. Then we went to Saravasa 3-0, and then we come into Esperanza. And how often do we see point completions on push? Like, they just absolutely dominated.
Yeah, maybe you see it sometimes like all the way to the end when it's kind of overtime already anyways, but not with 3 minutes on the clock still. That is an insane time bank to have left, and that sort of feels like you've truly downloaded or broken the other team. And while, of course, there is an argument to be made that GFU is potentially not that meta change resistant, like we are expecting, balance changes to come in, like fairly hefty ones over the course of the season. There's still a good case to be made that, well, yeah, if they can get that good on one comp, then they might be able to adapt to the next meta as well. We'll see what happens with that. Obviously, for now, we do know that GFU looked like the better team tonight. Sac State gonna have to go back to the drawing board, find out a couple of new things to try potentially, because they are definitely looking to be very willing to try, and that spirit alone can get you very far.
Yeah, there's always a good chance that Lucio's always going to find its place in the meta in some sort of rush brawl style, whether it's with a Winston, whether it's with a Reinhardt, whether it's with a Rissa, whether with Zarya. Lucio always finds his way into the meta, so you'll be able to take the skills that you learn from this composition for GFU and apply them to any kind of variation of what they're running. So I think they're definitely, very well secured going forward. Sac State, however, as you mentioned, gonna have to VOD review this a little bit. I think they need to lock down what composition they feel most comfortable in. And I think the first steps is finding that and getting really good at that, and then you start expanding out into other compositions based on the other maps.
Yeah, for sure. It's always an individual choice for everybody what to do. They do have coaches and people they can talk to, obviously. So I'm certain they will find a way forward. It's definitely not down and out just yet. We're just in week 1. I mean, what are we really worried about just yet? It's just the first game, and these teams are going to have a lot more fun and progress throughout the season. Let's see what they end up with in a couple of months, because time flies and practice can make all the difference. For now, though, that's been the end of this particular series, the end of this particular game, the end of this particular Overwatch broadcast tonight on the NECC. But don't worry, we'll be back again with more Overwatch next week. Go enjoy the weekend. Go enjoy the Overwatch League Grand Finals as well. They're going on in Toronto. And, stay safe out there.
Later.